Vacation Jeff is gone.
Yeah, you're all cranky again, aren't you?
I know.
You're not. Well, since you were going to be cranky, I figured I'd get a friend to come hang out with you and
to come
and tease you a little
troll
bit.
me, as he decided to tell me.
He apparently wanted to come hang out.
Go ahead, introduce him.
Keith Pompey, we've missed you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I mean, Ohio State's number one, bro. But other than that, it's cool.
Is that why you wanted to come on today?
That's exactly why he volunteered for that.
I wanted to come on and talk about Rutgers football.
Yeah, hey, Keith, I got a story for you. They used $450,000 for DoorDash last year for Rutgers. So they were eating well up in New Brunswick up there. So.
Probably healthy foods too.
Yeah, it's all good.
What's up with the trainer's table? Like, normally the athletes want to go to the trainer's table.
Have you seen them play? They're not training.
Hey, easy. This was not a Rip Rutgers interview, okay? Can we talk about some basketball stuff or Kenny Pickett's hand size, whatever you want to talk about?
Well, actually, before we get to basketball, we have to have the Kenny Pickett discussion because over my vacation, I kept getting text messages about Kenny Pickett. No matter what he does, this guy could have a Hall of Fame career. Not that he's going to.
Keith will never be happy.
There is no way. So, Keith, I propose a bet. Okay, so you like to talk a little trash, especially regarding the Eagles and the Giants, and Kenny Pickett's hand size is about 8.5 inches. So I think that you should take the over on the Giants winning more than 8.5 games. You gonna do it? You gonna do it?
And if you lose, you have to wear a Kenny Pickett jersey and his gloves.
Yeah, you all talk, or are you in on this?
No, that's a lot of games.
Come on. And if you're wrong, you have to wear a Kenny Pickett jersey and a size small gloves all day long.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to take that.
Keith, Keith, you got to know, Jeff's been working on this since he found out you were going to join us. He was like, what are we going to do? We got to come up with a bet.
We could do 3.5.
No way, man. His hands aren't that small.
Oh, okay.
All right,
He's
Jeff.
a third string quarterback.
You want to move it to the basketball talk, Jeff?
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, Keith, schedule release this week. You can predict the season for me now. What's the Sixers record going to be? Come on, that's what we do now, right? Hot take.
Yeah. I don't know. I still think that they're going to be one of the top teams in the East. I mean, the schedule is crazy the way it's matched up, especially down the stretch. But I think there's still a lot of bad basketball teams in the NBA, to whereas the 76ers are still going to be in the upper echelon. And I do think they have talent, but to put a number on it, I think they could hover around, 49, maybe 50.
Oh, I didn't think I'd actually get a prediction from him. I just was going to give him a hard time. I'll take it, Keith.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they've got 13 back-to-backs, 17 weekend home games. You'll get to travel a little bit in January, 8 days and 5 games, their longest road trip. Their longest homestand is 7 games over 15 days in December. But March is kind of brutal, March and April, who they have to play. It's going to be tough coming down the stretch for that team.
Yeah, it is, man. March and that's going to be a stretch. Like at one point, I think in March, I think they have 15 games in March, and 12 of them are on the road. But even still, like I think, like when you bring in the Sixers team together, right? You know, you have James Harden, who's saying that he's found the fountain of youth, that he's found his shot, he's in better shape, and then you bring in PJ Tucker, that's bringing toughness. Well, we're going to find out quick, fast, in a hurry, just how tough this team is, and if James can play. The thing is, you open up at Boston. Then you come home against Milwaukee. You play the Spurs. You play the Pacers. And then you go on a 2-game series in Toronto. And then the second game of that game is the first of a back-to-back with Toronto and at Chicago. So if I'm the Sixers, I'm like, come on, NBA. Like, what are you doing here? Because as we know, the people in Philly, if they struggle, then all of a sudden people are going to start saying, I thought y'all said James was better. I thought you said PJ was tough. What about Doc? He has to go. So, you know, it's a tough stretch for the 76ers early on.
Well, there's 2 health-related issues that you've already just brought up. One, Toronto. Are they going to be shorthanded again, or is everybody going to be vaccinated? Because it looks like Canada is going to have the same issues. And second of all, with this fountain of youth, is if he's found it, is Harden going to spread this around to all the other old guys they just signed?
That's a great
Jeff came back with jokes, Keith.
I know he came back with like boom, 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 boom. I think that's a great question, because when you look at Toronto, they're a bunch of young guys. You look at Boston, they're young. Milwaukee, they're veterans, but they're just not. They're like in their late 20s. You know what I mean? So I think that could be a problem for them. In like with the way the games are now. Typically, you think that could be a problem later on in the season, and there are going to be times where it's not going to impact them. But I just think that playing so many games, we're going to find out just how these guys are. I mean, think about it. Like Joel Embiid, is he going to be able to play back-to-backs, after dealing with that hand situation? So it's just going to be a lot of unanswered questions that we're going to find out.
When you mentioned back-to-backs, 5 of those 13 back-to-backs come in that final month and a half. So load management is going to be something this team is looking at coming down the stretch. Now, at the start of the season, they've got a couple dates of interest. Are you going to be marking your calendar for November 22nd to celebrate Ben Simmons' return to Philadelphia, Keith?
You know what? I guess it's going to be exciting to see what it is.
Is he on the court, Keith?
On the court, but here's
wait. Is he wearing a uniform?
Yes,
on the
is
court?
He on the court?
I think he'll be on the court. I think he'll be on the court. I hope he's on the court. At least
for his sake, I hope he's on the court. I want to see him play. For his sake, I hope he's on the court.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. Like, I think his return kind of is like lost his luster. Like, I think if he would have played in their last season, everything, we would have had people, the fans would have had a good time with it. Right about now, it could backfire. Like, if the Sixers are struggling and losing that game, it could be the same way it was last time, where they stop booing him and start booing the Sixers. So, again, a big game, but I think that it would have had more oomph if it happened last season.
Yeah, one of the things that I did want to talk to you about with regard to the schedule is the NBA's decision not to schedule any games on Election Day. How important is it that the NBA is doing this and continuing to use its platform to deal with social justice issues and the issues that are to benefit the community?
I think this is huge. I think this is something that you're actually surprised that it hasn't happened before. You know what I mean? Like, there are certain days where, certain people, I'm not saying they take off work, but, they make sure they get up early and they do a lot of things so they can get out and vote. I guess voting in this country is one of those things where you find out, like, you assume everybody votes, but then later on you find out having discussions with people like, nah, man, this is the first time I voted. And you're like, what? So I think for the NBA, the NBA is talking about all the causes that they want. And, being an African American, you find out that a lot of our people in our community hadn't voted before or in a long time. And the NBA is all about now, trying to uplift the Black community, trying to get people out there voting. I think this is a huge message for African Americans, minorities, and all people, to make sure that you make this a priority and get out there and vote.
One other thing about that is somebody that covers the NBA as much as you do, how proud are you that you get to cover a league that's proactive as opposed to, we're going to talk later on about a league like the NFL that is always behind the times with figuring these things out?
You know what? I am. I am. I'm proud of that. You look at, what David Stern started, and then you see what the players are saying now. It was one of those things where, honestly, David Stern did start it, but if we want to be real with this, it all really went up to another level when the Milwaukee Bucks, and I believe it was the Orlando Magic, or was it the Orlando Magic? But I know it's the Milwaukee Bucks when they walked off the floor and they refused to play that game. And then you remember that they had the meeting, and then all of a sudden, they just start having, these committees for social justice, committees for this, coaches getting involved. So I think that Yes, David Stern started it. The current commissioner, he followed up. But I think when the players did that stuff, it kind of opened up people's eyes to a lot of things.
The cool thing it creates, too, is the night before on November 7th, you're going to have all 30 NBA teams playing where they're out there promoting to their fans the importance of having a day of action the next day. They're not going to tell you who to vote for. They're going to tell you to get out there and vote, make your voice heard. And
Exactly.
For the amount of people that don't watch the news, but do follow an athlete, that do watch the highlights, to see it in a different medium, having worked in politics in my prior life and having people told me to my face over and over again they had never voted before, what was the point, to see leagues out there talking about what the point is, to have athletes who have found themselves in situations that have caused them to be activists because they did nothing other than were born, makes this an issue that is larger than just whether or not you play basketball games, but it's going to be good business because it's going to make excitement around those days for the NBA too.
Yeah, exactly right. And I, it's one of those things where, especially I didn't even think about that because the day before is going to be that a lot of make sure you get out and vote. And we talk about, like I said before, I mean, it was one of those things where how many times like we had a friend, maybe even a close friend or a colleague where you like, I know this guy votes. And then you go out, you might have a couple of drinks with them and they're like, nah, man, what's the point? Like as you said. So, I think this is great. I think it's bigger than what most people think because, the average person is like, what's the point? Why are they taking off? We vote anyway. Well, no, everyone does.
It's not meant for the person who votes anyway. It's meant for the people who aren't voting to try and get them to vote because everybody does better when everybody makes their voice heard.
Bingo.
Oh,
all right. So now let's get back to the Sixers for a second. Is the team that we see now, the roster that we see now, the team that we're going to see on opening day? That's all I'm holding it to. or is this, the big splash organization, are they going to continue to try to, or at least float this idea out there that Kevin Durant's going to make this team even older?
You know what? I think that this is going to be. I think
he likes the way you asked that question.
I know, right? I tried not to laugh, right? I tried to like, okay.
As the oldest person on this call,
yeah. But I think that the team that we see now is going to be the team that we're going to see in opening day. I mean, I think that when Kevin Durant and Donovan Mitchell. I think when those two guys, like basically a word got out that they want to be traded or were being shot, I think it slowed up a lot of stuff in the NBA where a lot of people were holding on to their assets, including the 76ers, to see what they can do and what they could get, right? But I think right about now, with it being a month out, and we still don't have any traction on KD. Donovan Mitchell, you're starting to hear some things maybe heating up a little bit. But I feel as if that right now you're looking at it like it might be a little bit too late to do what you want to do. Now, you can still do something, but I think the KD thing is holding everything up. So I do believe that the roster the guys that we see now are going to be the guys on the opening day roster. But that's not to say that, it could change shortly after that. But I do think that right now, this is what we're going to see.
All right, look, we know you got to go. However, you're going to take this bet. And since you're not willing to take it yourself and not willing to stand up for your Giants, I'm going to take the hit right now. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take the over, the Giants 8.5. And if I'm wrong, you still have to wear a Kenny Pickett jersey and small gloves for a day.
The best part is I can see Keith thinking about whether this is actually a good thing or if Jeff just lawyered him into not understanding what he agreed to.
Jeff doesn't even know who's going to be the starting quarterback. I love the Giants, but you don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback. We don't know if Saquon's going to make it to week 5, right?
Week 5? I was talking getting through the preseason.
I know, right? But all I know is it looks like Tyrod Taylor is pushing our quarterback. So.
All right, well, guess what? We get to start hopefully reading Keith Pompey at the Inquirer real soon. Pompey on Sixers. Where else can we get you?
Oh, you can also get me on the Locked On 76ers podcast. So you can do that. And I guess you also said read me real soon. You can read me at Inquirer.com when I get back from vacation in October 13th.
Keith, thanks for spending some of your vacation with us and coming on to give Jeff a hard time. Always appreciate it, man.
All right. I'm surprised y'all not talking about that money the Big Ten is making.
We're going to talk about it. We were just trying to value your time. Gone. Don't worry. We'll talk plenty about it.
Okay.
We're on it.
Yeah.
Take it easy, Keith.
Go Blue.